What they can't do very well, though, is introverted feeling, which is the vulnerable function. So this is meant to support extroverted sensing. It's meant to allow the ENTP to use harsh judgment of individuals. But because it's in the vulnerable function, it can't do that. It's a complete blind spot. It refuses to budge. And what that means is that ENTPs almost cannot bring themselves to acknowledge these negative personal attitudes towards people. They can recognize moods and emotions, but not say, I despise that individual and that person's character. If you ask them who they like, who they dislike in a very personal way, they'll lean towards finding something more objective to say, like some sort of structure or checklist, or simply look at what other people are feeling and saying. Because it's very hard for them to come up with very personal reasons to say no to things. That saying, oh, I don't like this, I don't feel comfortable about this. It's not something they need to be often can actually say, even though they might actually feel uncomfortable about something. They find it hard to almost admit it and talk about it. And it's very often you find that ENTP is often quite hard to offend for a similar sort of reason. They don't like to admit they might be offended and that there's a personal, subjective, arbitrary reason for not to do something. So introverted feeling is quite hard for an ENTP. They often struggle to maintain close bonds and relationships with other people. Whereas they can be, assertive sometimes. They're not very assertive, depends on what pressure they're under. They can adapt to the demands of them to some degree. Introverted feeling is not adaptive. So you may find they may be overly familiar with strangers or overly distant from their best friends. They may struggle to maintain friendships over a long period of time. Some ENTPs, if they're not aware of these difficulties, could also have a string of failed marriages even, which has been seen in a few famous examples. So yes, introverted feeling is very, very difficult for an ENTP to engage with, and they don't value it really at all. They don't really recognize it as being important. Some ENTPs go so far as to think that personal character is a myth. They may think that people are simply causally determined in all that they do, or come up with some other theory to explain people which doesn't depend on any kind of personal assessment. I hope you enjoyed this chapter of my Personality Types Explained Correctly series. If you would like to watch the full video, just click the link in the description below. If you'd like to discover your own personality type, you can also book a diagnostic interview. Details available once again in the description below. Thank you very much and have a good day.